Next week on RPMMO Radio, the presidential candidates for president of the MMORPG multiverse will be live and taking questions that matter, accusing one another of being the worst person since Xerxes, and why only they can change the political landscape. None of who will do anything they promise, change anything, and keep the status quo of the true power, the development Illuminati. So join us as our moderators moderate, ask the tough questions, and worse, the questions the audience has for each of them. It's a pay-to-win event of the year, the presidential MMO debates. This is RPMMO Radio.
Do it live! I'll write it and we'll do it live!
A podcast all about role-playing and MMORPGs.
I like what you got. Good job!
With your hosts, Ashen Phoenix, Sid, Jazz, Strafe, and Kishmas.
Everybody off. We need to go on a quick adventure.
Hello, role players. Welcome to RPMMO Radio. This is our 66th episode. Execute episode 66. Halloween Special 2. Electric Boogaloo. Okay, part of that's not actually part of the title, but I was figuring we'll go for the longest title possible on any podcast ever. That right there, that was the entirety of it. That whole paragraph, that was the title of the episode.
It was pretty legendary.
It's a good episode name. Unfortunately, the content of the episode will be not nearly as good as the actual name of the episode. I think tonight we have a solid 15 minutes of entertainment and discussion, and we're going to cram all 15 minutes of that into a solid 2-hour period. It's going to be really good. So, I, of course, am one of your hosts, Ashen Phoenix, and with me, as always, tonight is my crew, Jazz, Sib, and Strafe. How's it going, guys?
Hello.
We got Yunfei moderating in the chat.
It's going well.
Putting terms like genitalia and allowing it.
Woo!
Woohoo!
Because Jay the Exile just likes to fuck with the poor bot, make it work. It's a union job, botting. Russian union at that.
It's doing its job.
Somebody's got to do it.
Oh,
Yep.
man. All right, well, as everybody knows, Halloween holds a special place in my heart, and therefore, being the tyrant that I am, I require it to be a special place in everyone else's heart here. Or there will be very, very consequences. Do you understand what I am saying to you these days? You! Jez, I'm talking to you. You love the Halloween, even though scary things make you poo-poo your pants a little bit.
I don't like Halloween. No.
Halloween,
I absolutely love it.
I like Samhain, but that's a different thing.
I should run out and be live on location for just a second and do a little video of our yard and then come back and post it in Discord.
It is looking good. We got all the lights up on it. It's super creepy.
I might do that after the show. Run out there.
Most
then I'll
people don't
post it
even
and then I'll-
notice the actual body that's hidden among all the fake ones.
See, I'm with Ashen. Halloween's my favorite freaking holiday.
Yeah, even over the birth of Christ, right, Strafe?
Well, not so much that.
No, you just said it was your favorite holiday,
I did.
which means it's better than Christmas.
He technically wasn't born in December. We just made that
No.
deal.
See, Christmas is all about the birth of Santa.
Santa? All right, fine.
Yeah,
we'll
that's what
go with that.
we're celebrating the birth of Santa.
What? Fine. So, Halloween's the best.
Halloween is the best. You know what? You can't get away during the middle of Christmas scaring the shit out of little children you don't know and then saying, "It's okay, here's some candy."
Exactly.
See, which is kind of ironic. During the Christmas season when you're supposed to be filled with spirit and joy, if you give candy to a little kid, you have the police called on you. But during Halloween, you get a smile and a thank you. One of these things is better than the other. I'm just saying.
You're broken.
No, he makes a
broken.
lot of sense.
Yeah. You're broken. It's not my... hey, I don't come up with these traditions. I just point out their ludicrousy.
No, I think she was talking. Were you talking about his speaking broken, or is he
No.
just broken?
Just his mental...
He's just broken.
his mental faculties, yeah. Oh, I understood what she
he's
meant.
broken.
I understood the slight. I understood. Just can't take it anymore. Or can I? Or can I? So appreciate everybody tuning in. I want to give special thanks real quick to our Patreon donors, especially those at the raid boss level, like the Truth Bob. We have mailed out several stickers to various people, other than those that are just on the cast. People like the Truth Bob. If you would like the stickers because you're at the $5 level or above, and we don't have your address, you're not getting nothing because I'm not psychic.
Yeah, you have to have your address or it doesn't do any good.
Right? Yeah. So, but we have gotten several of them out, and unknown to me, apparently another little stretch goal for doing that is a handwritten note from Sib herself. Telling only one of you that she was, you were her favorite,
You're not
and
supposed to say that.
Dang.
and if you get
It ain't gonna
that,
be me.
you'll know who you are, and and if you don't get that, try harder.
Try harder.
I'm just saying, she's the nice one. I am the sour one. If we,
I'm excited for those to start showing up. 'Cause
Yeah.
I put a little thought
yeah,
into those. and
we
had
even
fun.
sent. I will say we did send, even though he's not on there anymore, because he was our very first and he gave more than enough to have earned it. We did send one or send a few down to Austere. I don't think it's going to look right for him because he is down in Australia that they will all look upside down to him. But I'm sure he'll be able to read it backwards. I'm sure he'll figure it out. He's a smart guy. I mean,
He'll adapt.
if that is if he hasn't been bitten by a snake, eaten by a spider, and shat out by a shark while cutting himself on a coral reef. I'm just saying, any of those things are all possible. Oh, also
All
while
true
being
possibilities.
kicked in the dick by a kangaroo.
I think the last one's the worst. I'm just saying.
Yeah, that would hurt. Man, they are
A whole
fucking
lot.
buff. They are buff.
Yeah, they are.
So, for tonight, what we have, we're going to skip what we've been doing in role play. We're going to read a few scary stories. Some of them are longer than others. None of them are ones we wrote. We're actually just going to read it, have kind of a
Actually,
fun
I
thing.
wrote the one I'm reading, so.
Oh, okay. Except for Jazz, who apparently wrote the one she's reading. I forgot about that. It's been a messy week. And then we're gonna go into a topic of, can you even actually make a scary character? Stay tuned to find out what I think and what we all think and what we've never ran into in our history of actually playing RP. That might be a small spoiler alert. So with that, let's see. I know we're not going to do what's in role play, but I was thinking we'd go ahead and go and start this one out with anybody that's actually written their story. So those of you that wrote your story you're about to read, go ahead and raise your hands. Jazz, is it just though? It's it's just you, Jazz.
Yeah, look at that.
Huh. Look at the... It's amazing how that always works out. Whatever I pick, it seems to be that you're the one that's only qualifies.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't it be
Amazing.
nice if, like, job hunting was this easy?
Yeah,
Like,
except
I'm
I
looking
like my job.
Let's
so.
look for a CEO. Anybody that's a dark elf housewife in Iowa, raise your... Oh, there's just the one. Yeah, so it'd be nice, wouldn't it?
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not a CEO and I don't have anything. And I unfortunately did not win my lottery ticket numbers.
Neither did I.
Yeah.
Very sad.
Yeah. Oh, man, that's a conversation to have. How quickly
Well,
you tell
Jazz.
everything in your life to fuck off the second you get those numbers.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, with that, let's go to our scary, not quite scary, but probably suspenseful story.
Jazz.
With yeah, way to keep it scary, Sib. All right, Jazz, take it away.
This is called, it's from my Black Life Blood Red Cial's journals, which are a collection of stories. This is from the Blood and Rhythm. It's a short story that I wrote. Starts at part 3 and goes to the end. Cial sat in a tree and ate the remaining venison as she watched the ruin entrance and several explorers that entered, full of pep and left bedraggled. After the sun warmed the trees and the dew was gone, she moved, slipping inside to begin her search. It was a typical crypt full of bandits and mages of varying degrees of dangerousness. She avoided most, keeping to the shadows and using the magical means when necessary to avoid most confrontations. There were a few times it was necessary to lay open the throats of some hapless bandits, but for the most part, she avoided contact of any kind. Now it was dark and dank. The dust she walked on had only 2 sets of footprints, and they were really dusty. Both were much larger than hers. She was less than an hour behind them, maybe, although she couldn't quite explain all the dust. When she heard the voices, she extinguished the magical flame she had following her for light and crept forward slowly. They had a half-dozen torches and lights bouncing off the old stone, lighting her way fairly well for eyes used to the darkness in the deep jungle forest. At the edge of the room she paused, staying in the deep shadows to cast the light as she watched the 2 of them. It was a Nord and an Altmer, both larger than normal and extremely armed. The mage was the Altmer, and he was armored with plate and a large sword on his back. The Nord was also in heavy armor, but carried a sword and a shield. They were both older and looked seasoned. The mage was chanting tiredly, and the magic was in the air. She stilled and willed her body to slow. No point in announcing her presence if unnecessary. "We're a bit busy, Bosmer. Perhaps you can come to pilfer later?" The Altmer's clipped voice was dripping with annoyance, and she sighed. So much for sneaking up on them. Giving up the idea of hiding, she stepped into the light, one of her daggers loosely in her hand, but appearing fairly relaxed given the circumstances. The Nord grinned with a malice-colored gaze as he took a step toward her. The mage didn't even look at her as he continued his chanting. "I'm going to break you in half, little girl," the Nord spoke thickly, and Cial studied him for a long moment, trying to decide if he was simple or drunk or both. She sized him up thoughtfully, noting that he limped on his left and was pushing the last of his years of youth. For an older Nord, he lacked the scars she would expect, and she nodded, taking that into accord, and taking a step back and to the left as he approached. "Call off your Nord," she said it quietly, and the Altmer chuckled, still not bothering to look up. "He's not very bright, but he makes up for it in viciousness. No, I think I'll let him do what he does best and keep working on this little puzzle here. Thank you." The Altmer's voice was thick and older as well, and she noted that his robes, while fine, were older as well. She knew this was their last adventure and probably had little to lose. She sighed, nodded, and drew her dagger. "Then we dance," she said. He picked her up with one hand, dangling her by the arm limp as he raised it. His other hand dropped the sword to grab her by the neck. "I win," he smirked and threw her away from him to the pile of rubble. She bounced once and skid, laying limp against the far wall. His laugh bounced off the darkness around them as he trudged closer. His foot nudged her. She didn't move. He leaned down to grab a handful of arm. Cial spun into action with a growl as she thrust the dagger into his eye socket and leapt up mid-transformation into werewolf form. He gave a muffled yelp of shock and backpedaled, swinging a meaty paw at her as blood gushed from the wound. He pawed in blind pain as the dagger in his eye socket bled, and he howled as he bumped it, and stumbled backwards, landing on his back with a thud. He finally grabbed it and with both hands yanked it out with a wet, sucking sound, and that was the last thing he would do. He went still after a few tremors and shuddering, flopping like a hammered fish until the whole room fell silent save for the sound of the magic and the mage. Cial rolled to all fours and slowly stood, rubbing her face as she waited for the room to stop spinning. The thick, deep growl reverberated around the room until she howled, allowing her to shift back to her mortal form. Panting, she braced against a shattered wall as she gathered her wits, half expecting the mage to stop and attack, but he never did. He just kept chanting tirelessly, shifting from phrase to phrase as he worked on the puzzle. She picked up a piece of the wall, destroyed by time, and threw it, her remaining strength, at the mage's head. It missed his head and hit the book in his hand, and his hand. He stared at the bleeding hand and then the book broken on the floor, a torn page fluttering. "Well, that was rude, you know." Cial shrugged with a good shoulder, hefting the sword in one hand and throwing it away. She took a limping move towards him as she yanked the dagger off of the Nord and moved into a fighting position and gripping the dagger with her wounded arm as backup. She moved slowly toward the mage who, to his credit, realized she was serious and turned to face her as his hands began to glow. So I guess I will just kill you and then open the treasure. How bothersome. Let's get this over with. Cial snorted and nodded as hand raised to cast the spell, and she reached down and grabbed the sword at the last minute and then spun, throwing it as hard as she could, straight for his neck and face. The sword flew true and embedded in his neck, half severing the head from his body and spraying blood across the room in a majestic arc as his body spun around. He screamed a wet, wild sound, spewing blood from the wound in his mouth. As he landed hard, the sword jangled free and tumbled on the stone in a clanging sound. Cial made a soft exhale as she watched the end, eyes taking in his last throws from her vantage point. Magic bubbled around him like poison, and she did not move near him for some time until the last vestige of power ebbed from him into the broken stones. She quickly moved past him and picked up the book and tucked the page back in, peering at the scribbles and notes. They were gibberish to her, and likely would mean something to someone, likely Boss Kia or Lady Farah. She shut the book and held it, the hand-hewn cover and broken spine in her grip. Her eyes turned and looked at the glyphs around her in the half-light of the dying torch gleam, noting the phosphorescence of the stone glyphs and the images they painted. She thought these were similar to the constellations she had seen in a dozen Ayleid ruins she had been drugged to by Mr. Silverleaf. And she knew what they were: lover, knight, tower, thief, and the rest. Her eyes drifted to the dead mage, remembering the phrases he had said over and over, putting strings of words together as if trying to find a combination. The light glimmered in her mind as she looked back to the constellations, and she puzzled if he had been speaking Ayleid, placing the combination in words instead of triggered stone. However, the Ayleids were smart enough to know that most would forget the tongue but remember the shapes and forms. They placed the combinations on things because they wanted to learn to open their puzzle. She moved to the dais, and contemplated the sigils and constellations on it in a circular format. At the apex facing the mural, almost like a podium, was the stone sculpture of what was once likely a rushing of water. Time had not been kind, but she could see that much in the form. She looked to the book in her hand and set it on top of the stone sculpture. She nearly jumped out of her skin when the dais around her glowed brightly and the sculpture under the book shimmered with power. Huh, she grunted, the word as she looked from the glowing constellations to the sculpture under the book to the mural on the wall, now all glowing. She noted with another soft sound that the book itself had changed as well. The letters on the page were glowing. So, she thought, the book belongs there. That's interesting, she muttered to herself as she stood there, fairly sure that moving a fraction in any direction was likely going to be fatal. She was only surprised a little bit when something shifted and noises were heard, and then a spirit stepped into view on little ledges on each notch of the dais. The hair on the back of her neck stood up as she stood there waiting, not moving an inch. Finally, in the crackling sound of magic and time, another spirit appeared on a little ledge on the altar at the base of the mural, and his eyes glowed with power, and he pointed at her. Speak or die. There was a long, drawn-out silence as she stared at the spirit, trying to figure out how it was she understood his words. Finally, it seems he became annoyed and gave an ethereal sigh. Child, I am speaking your tongue from inside your head. Speak to me, for your thoughts ring bright like banging a copper drum, and even in the afterlife, I would rather listen to stone desiccate than continue. Speak words. Her eyebrows went up, but she nodded. I do not know your words, she said. The spirit nodded once. This is true, but I do know yours, and that is all that matters currently. The blood of my kin and distant magic runs in your veins, and you possess power that many others do not. You are bright and solved a puzzle that others have not been apt to see because you took the simple route. This means you have earned the right of parley and are granted boon to take possession of the artifact. Now, she had come here for the artifact. She hadn't planned on this. She weighted his words thoughtfully and eventually nodded. The mind rape thing, she said after a long moment. The spirit chuckled. Is that what they told you? Interesting. Yes, I suppose that is apropos description in the end. But I do not need it, but for a night, she said, and I will return it back to your lock and key. He laughed. Return it, will you? Are you sure? This male who sent you, does he tell the truth? Most would never part with such power, for this is a weapon and you have both the key and the tool. Do you understand? She frowned and thought on for a little while. Why did they want this toy? What did they want with this toy? The spirit laughed. Toy? Oh, child, you do not understand at all. I see this clearly. The spirit shimmered into solid form to reveal a strikingly beautiful Jamora with shining hair and glowing eyes. Her eyebrows went up and her eyes widened. Her entire expression said, oops. Even if her words were silent, the spirit turned Jamora chuckled. I have been imprisoned here a very long time. Sial, this toy you speak of is the weapon that keeps me here and the key to my prison on that dais on the podium. I seek freedom, and if you grant me my release, I will grant you something of equal value. She thought for a little while, trying to figure out why she was special and why the others had failed. He laughed. He said, they were missing the third component, child. A soul. The words rang inside her skull, echoing of truth, and she nodded. She realized it was their deaths that opened the door, not just her words. Her eyes went to the soul, blood on her hands, and to the spray of blood that painted the runes and relics of this ancient prison. The Daedra and blood, souls, magic. It made sense, and she nodded slowly. Now what? She said. The Jamora smiled an unpleasant smile and gestured wide with both hands. Now you release me, and I grant you something of great value. Sial's eye narrowed at the odd wording. Are you not already released? She knew the answer. The moment the words left her lips, the Jamora chuckled and did not bother to answer, and she sighed. I have to open the doors, and it has to be my choice. That is the rule. The Jamora grinned. See, you are much wiser than you think. I knew I liked you. The end.
Very good. Now she's gonna.
Nicely done.
Yeah.
Pretty fancy.
Yeah, I unmuted myself. I know you guys could hear me, but they couldn't. But very, very good. Now she's probably gonna go. Did you beat him? Did you beat him, Jazz?
I didn't beat him. I did yell.
No, it wasn't that bad. No, it was very good.
Thank you.
Very, very
Nicely
good.
done.
Yeah, apparently, if Jay the Exile ever has kids, he wants to hire you to read to them. I think I speak for everyone I say I pray that day never comes. Sorry, Jay. Sorry. You left it out there, man. All right. Well, let's see here. So, Sib and Strafe, which one of you wants to go next with your short story?
I can
Ladies
go-
first.
Okay.
Oh, look at that. Yeah. Just make sure you say the title and who wrote it.
Okay, mine is called Hidden by KMA Poke. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sorry. Okay. My work
Sorry.
here
I
is
thought it was a
done.
dramatic pause, and you're like, oh, sorry.
Okay. Where are you? I screamed, panicked. I ran through the abandoned farm. I couldn't find her. Not in the old house, not in the barn. I ran into the empty field, heart racing. As I scanned the area, I ran into a mound of dirt and tripped, sprawling into the ground. Get up, it hits me. Abandoned farm. I tripped over freshly turned earth. Crouching down, I started frantically clawing with my hands, scooping handfuls of dirt. I hit something hard. Wood! Are you there? I cry, pressing my ear to the wood. I hear a muffled cry. I started digging again, but I realized it's taken too long. Looking around, I see a garden shed. I sprinted to it. I ripped open the door. I see a shovel, still caked with dirt. Probably the same one that bastard buried her with. I grabbed it, running back. I started digging with a purpose. Soon the wooden box was exposed. I tossed the shovel and ripped open the crate. She stared back at me, eyes wide, bound, gagged, but alive. I sighed with relief. Thank God. I reached into my bag, pulling out my rag and chloroform. I crouched down, placing it over her face. She struggled, faint. I tossed her over my shoulder. Oh, hell. My brother said as I walked back to the truck with a smirk, "You found her." Yup. You almost had me, though. I laughed. All right. My turn. Where'd you put her? I gestured to the creek area. Somewhere over there. Drowning's an issue, though. Jerk, he says, running off. I smile, watching him go. I love adult hide and seek. The end.
Pretty cool.
I read that and I was like, that is so creepy. So I was like, hopefully he'll find her. Yeah, he did.
Yikes.
I muted myself. Doggone it. Nobody could hear me. Anyway,
Well, what
I
he
was
said,
talking about Hill
Kitty,
House.
was Haunting of Hill House and how
so
amazing
funny.
it was, and you should watch it.
Everybody was
Yeah.
listening to me in straight.
Yeah, you guys are talking like crazy people. Or was I talking? Dun dun dun.
He was so talking.
Ooh. They were hearing voices and responding to them, but it's okay. It only went on for like a solid minute of them sounding crazy.
It is the Halloween episode.
Happy Halloween.
We have our
that's right.
crazies.
Yeah, I was trying not to like cough into it, and then I was like, "Oh, I'll remember." No, I won't. I should know better than to ever mute myself. I'm never gonna remember. So, all right. Well, Strafe,
Yes, sir.
how about you?
I'm going to read a tale called There's No Reason to Be Afraid by Whoever Fights Monsters. When my sister Betsy and I were kids, our family lived for a while in a charming old farmhouse. We loved exploring its dusty corners and climbing the apple trees in the backyard, but our favorite thing was the ghost. We called her Mother because she seemed to be kind and nurturing. Some mornings, Betsy and I would wake up, and on each of our nightstands, we'd find a cup that hadn't been there the night before. Mother had left them there, worried that we might get thirsty during the night. She just wanted to take care of us, you see. Among the house's original furniture was an antique wooden chair, which we kept against the back wall of the living room. Whenever we were preoccupied watching TV or playing a game, her favorite was Space Invaders, Mother would inch that chair forward across the room, slowly, till she got toward us. Sometimes she'd manage to move it all the way to the center of the room. We always felt sad putting it back against the wall. Mother just wanted to be near us, you see. Years later, long after we'd moved out, I found an old newspaper article about the farmhouse's original occupant, a widow. She'd murdered her 2 children by giving them each a cup of poisoned milk before bed. Then she'd hanged herself. The article included a photo of the farmhouse's living room with a woman hanging from a beam. Beneath her, knocked over, was that old wooden chair, placed exactly in the center of the room.
Ooh.
Spooky.
Super spooky.
Yeah, it was short, but I thought it was cute.
Yeah. They don't have, you know. You're still muted now. Ha! I'm not the only one. Ah.
Mine was super short, but I really liked it.
Yeah.
I like yours. I like them. I like Jazz's. I like them all. I just like spooky stories.
Yes.
Feels like we're sitting around a campfire. It's my favorite thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of, I always like, you know, it's always fun to get in the spirit of these things. Hopefully it you know, it comes out well on the podcast and you guys enjoy it. If you don't, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with you?
Really, I mean, come on.
Shut
Something's got to be wrong with you.
So, all right. Well, we've got 2 more. I'm going to read mine now. And Yunfei's, she pre-recorded hers because she's a little nervous. But we're going to, because hers is probably the longest of all of them, we're going to play it at the end, actually. And just kind of as a bonus from the moderations. So, all right. Well, with mine, I didn't have to, but I wanted to go with one of the shorter versions of the father of all horror and modern day horror anyway, H.P. Lovecraft, in The Terrible Old Man. It was the design of Angelo Ricci and Joe Sesnick and Manuel Silva to call on the Terrible Old Man. This old man dwells all alone in a very ancient house on Water Street near the sea, and is reputed to be both exceedingly rich and exceedingly feeble, which forms a situation very attractive to men of the profession of the Messieurs Ricci, Sesnick, and Silva, for that profession was nothing less dignified than robbery. The inhabitants of Kingport say and think many things about the Terrible Old Man, which generally keeps him safe from the attention of gentlemen like Mr. Ricci and his colleagues, despite the almost certain fact that he hides a fortune of indefinite magnitude somewhere about his musty and venerable abode. He is, in truth, a very strange person, believed to have been a captain of the East Indian clipper ships in his day, so old that no one can remember when he was young, and so taciturn that few know his real name. Among the gnarled trees in the front yard of his aged and neglected place, he maintains a strange collection of large stones, oddly grouped and painted so that they resemble the idols of some obscure Eastern temple. This collection frightens away most of the small boys who love to taunt the Terrible Old Man about his long white hair and beard, or to break the small paned windows of his dwelling with wicked missiles. But there are other things which frighten the older and more curious folk, who sometimes steal up to the house to peer in through the dusty panes. These folks say that on a table in a bare room on the ground floor are many peculiar bottles, in which a small piece of lead suspended pendulum-wise from a string. And they say that the Terrible Old Man talks to these bottles, addressing them by such names as Jack, Scarface, Long Tom, Spanish Joe, Peters, and Mate Ellis, and that whenever he speaks to a bottle, the little pendulum within makes a certain definite vibrations as if in answer. Those who have watched the tall, lean, terrible man in these peculiar conversations do not watch him again. But Angelo Ricci and Joe Sesnick and Manuel Silva were not of Kingsport blood. They were of the new, heterogeneous alien stock which lies outside the charmed circle of New England life and traditions, and they saw in the Terrible Old Man merely a tottering, almost helpless graybeard who could not walk without the aid of his knotted cane, and whose thin, weak hands shook pitifully. They were really quite sorry in their way for the lonely, unpopular old fellow whom everybody shunned, and at whom all the dogs barked singularly. But business is business, and to a robber whose soul is in his profession, there is a lure and a challenge about a very old and very feeble man who has no account at the bank, and who pays for his few necessities in the village store with Spanish gold and silver minted 2 centuries ago. Messieurs Ricci, Sesnick, and Silva selected the night of April 11th for their call. Mr. Ricci and Mr. Silva were to interview the poor old gentleman, while Sesnick waited for them and their presumable metallic burden with a covered motor car on Ship Street, by the gate in the tall rear wall of the host's grounds. Desire to avoid needless explanations in case of an unexpected police intrusions prompted these plans for quiet and unobtrusive departure. As prearranged, the three adventurers started out separately in order to prevent any evil-minded suspicions afterwards. Messieurs Ricci and Silva met in Water Street by the old man's front gate, and although they did not like the way the moon shone down upon the painted stones through the budding branches of the gnarled trees, they had more important things to think about than mere idle superstition. They feared it might be unpleasant work making the terrible old man loquacious concerning his hoarded gold and silver, for aged sea captains are notably stubborn and perverse. Still, he was very old and very feeble, and there were two visitors, Messieurs Ricci's and Silva, were experienced in the art of making unwilling persons voluble, and the screams of the weak and the exceptional vulnerable man can be easily muffled. So they moved up to one lighted window and heard the terrible old man talking childishly to his bottles with pendulums. Then they donned masks and knocked politely at the weather-stained oaken door. Waiting seemed very long to Mr. Cesnik, as he fidgeted restlessly in the covered motor car by the terrible old man's back gate on Ship Street. He was more than ordinarily tender-hearted, and he did not like the hideous screams he heard in the ancient house just after the hour appointed for the deed. Had he not told his colleagues to be gentle as possible with the pathetic old sea captain? Very nervously he watched that narrowed oaken gate and the high and ivy-clad stone walls. Frequently he consulted his watch and wondered at the delay. Had the old man died before revealing where his treasure was hidden? Had a thorough search become necessary? Mr. Cesnik did not like to wait so long in the dark in such a place. Then he sensed a soft tread or tapping on the walk inside the gate, heard a gentle fumbling at the rusting latch, and soft tread or tapping on the walk inside the gate. Saw the narrow and heavy door swing inward, and in the pallid glow of the single dim street light, he strained his eyes to see what his colleagues had brought out of that sinister house which loomed so close behind. But when he looked, he did not see what he expected, for his colleagues were not there at all, but only the terrible old man, leaning quietly on his knotted cane and smiling hideously. Mr. Cesnik had never before noticed the color of the man's eyes. Now he saw that they were yellow. Little things make considerable excitement in little towns, which is the reason that Kingsport people talked all that spring and summer about the three unidentifiable bodies, horribly slashed as if by many cutlasses, and horribly mangled as by the tread of many cruel boot heels, which the tide washed in. And some people even spoke of things as trivial as the deserted motor car found in Ship Street, or certain especially inhuman cries, probably of a stray animal or migratory bird, heard in the night by wakeful citizens. But in the idle village gossip, the terrible man took no interest at all. He was by nature reserved, and when one is the age and feeble, one's reserve is undoubtedly doubly strong. Besides, so ancient a sea captain must have witnessed scores of such things stirring in the far-off days of his unremembered youth. The end. That's how you end the story.
Well done, sir.
Yeah, he's a good guy. Crazy racist, but still a father of modern-day fictional horror.
Yes.
So, all right. Well, like I said, at the very end, we're gonna play Yunfei's, so that we can have her kind of close out the show. But before that, and before we hit our main topic, let's go ahead and do a quick word from our sponsor.
Did you get a sponsor? Because I got one.
I did.
Oh, did you?
Yes,
'Cause
I did.
I did too.
Did you? Well, all right. Well, I'll read mine, and then it's been kind of a busy week, and we may or may not have wrote these while the others were talking.
I do have Mr. Dyer on line 3. I mean, if you're going to go with that, I got to tell him something.
You know, okay. Well, so we've actually got 3 sponsors this time, huh?
Well,
Apparently so.
Or were you?
Do
or
we-
was
do
he
we
just
really wanna
stopping
risk-
by?
do we really want to risk him coming in and doing what he always
to
does?
be honest, the last time it took us a month and a half to get the maggots out of the carpet.
I'll make something up.
Okay. All right. Well,
I'll get rid of him.
okay. All right. Well, with that, let me go ahead and go to a quick. You know what, Sib, you go ahead. You do yours.
Well, I need to find the narrator real quick. I mean, the person that was supposed to be doing it. I mean, he wasn't around.
Oh, okay. I don't know what that means.
Well, go ahead and do yours first.
Oh, okay. That's what that means. All right. This is a well-oiled machine here, folks. I don't know what you're talking about. Oh.
Should have told me. I could have, run Gormal off. I could have told him.
No, that's all right. All right. Okay, so here's the word from our sponsor. Is your fur lacking the shine and luster it once had? Is it tangled and matted? Does it have patches missing and mange? Bring them down to Wear Groomer Experts Happy Claws. We'll clean, cut, and groom that mangy man-wolf you love into a Fabio-like image of a wolfy Greek god. Come in on Tuesdays, and we'll even put little bows in his ear hair for free. Happy Claws, just across the street from Scaly Scale Wax.
That sounds like a legit place.
Yeah, not too bad, right? Yeah.
Man, that's unfortunate.
Just see a bunch of werewolves with those cute little, like, poodle bows in their hair. Can you imagine?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I want to see.
I wonder if I could get you in.
What's that?
I wonder if I could get you in.
Get me in?
Yeah.
Something you want to tell us, Ashton?
I'm not
I mean,
that hairy?
you got a beard now?
Oh, okay. Oh,
Get you-
I do have. Yeah, but that's not
you
like.
put little-
Yeah, but you can't. I don't have enough ear hair yet. Call me again in 30 years, and you could probably put a bow in that.
Oh, I thought she was alluding to the fact that you might howl at the moon a little too loud.
I mean,
I don't howl at the moon because the moon doesn't exist. I'm not
You
a
should
conspiracy theorist, Trafay. It's
No.
obviously a reflection of the dome above us.
are you
I mean,
is that what they're saying?
That's what I'm saying. All right, so
he's calling back. I get rid of him though.
all right.
Don't
apparently-
answer line. Do not answer line 4.
Okay, well, that won't be a problem because
Okay,
what
good.
are you waving at? Did you get the link? Yes, I got the link. Wow, I'm doing this thing. It's a radio thing where they they talk while they're doing something else to like build time. I think they call it wasting time. Like I said, a solid 10 minutes of entertainment into a 2-hour show, and we're already. Given we started about 10 minutes late, about 50 minutes. By the way, fuck you, Firefox, for losing my profile and making me spend 45 minutes just getting a fucking browser to work correctly again. Yes, and I know, Jace, my wife is better than me. I don't need you pointing it out just like the rest of my family. Bastard.
Thank you, Jay.
All right, so apparently we've got another word from our sponsor. This one is, I don't know. So let's just go to our narrator and see what he has to say about it. No. Okay. Let's see if we can find our host. Hold on, Elmira. Hello, Elmira. Let's look in here and see if we can find her. Oh, so sorry. Elmira, we will just have to wait out here.
Oh, hello, my love. Yes, I was just having a snack before I had to speak to the fine villagers. Anyway, let me wipe my mouth. I'll be right with you. Yes, much better now.
You have a little bit of blood right there. Yes, no, the other corner. Okay, there you go. You got it. Good for you.
Oh, thank you, my love. Now, I am here to tell you about this year's All Hallows Eve blood drive for a wonderful organization. No warm blood flows. You will have a chance to offer the life-giving fluid that is free to you. But so many times it's hard for us vampires to get. 'Cause some of us are just out of shape and can't catch our strong prey. Some of us are just too shy and have a hard time taking the warm, rich, red drink of life from ones that carry it in their pulsing veins. Some of us are just too small and young and are just not experienced enough to take that drink of life from those that carry it. We plead with you to come down to the Fast Town Cemetery and give to those that need the liquid gold to survive. Yes, you too can be one of our lovely donors. Ignore those that will speak bad of us, saying that we will make thralls of you, or kill you, or turn you into one of us. They do not understand the feeling of having an empty belly, or the feeling of starving to death. I beg of you, please, give. We will be looking forward to sucking your blood. Now, excuse me, I must get back to my donor. I don't want him to get cold.
Right. Okay, well, yes. So
I ain't going down there.
you can head right down to Fartown Cemetery and donate to their cause. Maybe. NWBF helps vampires everywhere of all ages. The first 50 donors get a free pumpkin shirt, and everyone will, quote-unquote, walk away with a balloon and a warm Otis Spunkmeyer cookie. They have chocolate chip and white chocolate chip macadamia nut, so hurry down, I guess.
Yeah, no thanks.
Yeah. Jazz, you
What?
first.
No,
Jazzy's always first.
I'm always first. Find someone else.
Hey, Jazz, we're all still having fun, and you're still the one.
That's right. So,
Still don't wanna run.
Yeah,
you.
no.
Sorry.
all right. Well, hopefully everyone enjoyed that as much as I think we did. I don't know. I mean,
It was good.
we
We got Gormal away from the studio, but
I
yeah,
can
he took my
still.
truck.
He's still near an air exchanger. I can smell it coming through the vents.
no, well, yeah, he was there, but
Yeah, it's
He then,
lingering. It sticks to the.
that's
It-
a diaphragm. But don't worry, he stole my truck. So
The
Where-
musk is strong.
Anywhere he's been, just like shit sticks to the wall, his stink sticks to the air.
Hey, wait a
I'm
minute.
aware. But
I
like
swear-
I said, I took one for the team. He stole my truck, so yeah, he's gone.
Wait,
but
wait. Where
I'm
did
out of
Hot
vehicle,
Jessica
so-
go? I thought she was going to talk tonight. Did he take her with him?
I mean, he's notorious
Oh, no.
for conning girls to go with him places. So,
Even if he
I-
can't,
No.
even if he can't spell
Oh.
it.
well, yeah, well,
You know that's going to
we
cause
here at
trouble.
our MMORP Radio don't judge those that are illiterate. We're kind.
Or
Mostly.
even know what show we're on.
Even though that troll face took my truck. RP MMO Radio, you troll face. Yes, I just got it backwards.
Mhm.
Hey, look, I'm distraught, man. He stole my truck. I mean, it's
Oh,
gone.
yeah.
You
oh,
have
yeah.
a right to be distraught.
Yeah.
He left Piot marks, and he left me something in snot. I don't even want to read that.
And snot.
Yes. It's,
You have no idea
it's
the
his-
depths of that troll.
It actually is his preferable
Ugh.
form of quote unquote ink.
It also actually glows in the dark as well, which I don't know how he does
Yeah,
that. But
Oh.
Yeah, and don't, whatever, for the love of God, whatever you do, don't go into his room with a black light. It's like a fucking Pollock painting.
Let's not.
wait. You've been in Gormal's room?
I've just heard rumors.
I see.
You know, we're going to have to get Jessica back for Penelope. She's going to be pissed.
Yeah, nobody cares.
Well, okay. Then we'll just have to do it.
I have enough
I'll
secret
let you
footage
deal
of
with.
her. I don't need anymore.
I'll let you deal with Penelope next week at the. Oh, this is gonna be a nightmare.
Yeah, I don't care what Penelope does.
It's Penelope.
I like the way I said it better.
I like the way he
and
did
I'm
it.
voting. I'm voting for Penelope.
Hmm.
A vote for Penelope is throwing your vote away.
That's right.
Whatever.
All right. So,
Haters gonna hate.
Ader's gonna ain't.
this is what happens when you grow up in the mean white ass streets of Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. This is as ghetto as we get. This is it.
That's a little sad, but
Mhm.
funny.
That is sad.
Yeah.
How about you? I grew up in South Dallas, son.
Yeah.
But I digress.
South Dallas. Yeah. Which is like North Detroit.
Mm,
I have no idea. There's nothing. I don't think there's actually any part of Detroit that's actually good anymore. So, all right. Well, so playing a scary character. I know we've talked about playing a villain. We've talked about, playing, villains, like bad guys and things like that. We've never really talked of if it's even possible, truly possible, to create a scary or an actual creepy character. Not the kind of creepy that's like, because, like, you got real pretty ears and likes you to squeal like a pig, or is just an awful person that eats oranges like apples. Not that kind of creepy. Which of there's several. But like a truly, like, that guttural kind of fear, like that you get when you watch a scary movie, or you're actually, something scares you, or that creepy feeling you get when you read like a good Stephen King, novel back when they were
yeah.
more scary and less, I don't know, just really, really interesting and cool.
I don't think you can maintain this creepy spookiness, but I think it's situational where you can pull it off every once in a while.
Yeah. See, and
I got a story, so whenever you're ready, I'll share it.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, like, personally, I've never seen a character myself that I would consider like scary or creepy. Even like the darkest of the role play with like the vampires, or someone that role plays a monster. It goes to interesting or edgy, or like but it's just modern. It's not scary. It's not like the old like Nosferatu, how or people like seeing The Exorcist for the first time and fainting in 1970. I've never seen anybody I would consider playing a character that's scary, supposed to be scary, but never actually is like, wow, that's fucking creepy. Am I alone in that?
I remember there was one guy that did a really good job, but he turned out to be creepy in real life, which may have been why he played a really creepy character.
Okay,
So
being creepy because they're not actually the you squeal like a pig and you got real pretty ears guy, or it rubs the lotion on its skin.
no, yeah, he was truly. I met him in EQ2, and his character was really, really set you on edge. Just talking to his character set you on edge. And he was a creepy character. I mean, he would stand there and wring his fingers together and watch people and lick his lips. And you know, he was creepy.
Yeah.
And then it turned out that he kind of...
He was just playing himself.
Yes, he was just playing himself. And he was just... And he was upset because I said, you know, I got to commend you on your character. I don't think I've met a character that is as creepy as your character is. And he says, what do you mean he's creepy? I'm like, well, you're doing this and this and this. He goes, I do that all the time.
That's the RP equivalent of, when are you due? I'm not pregnant. That's what you did.
Yeah, I was
Totally
just like,
did, Jazz.
Yeah. Oh, shit.
and he was just like, and I think you're real pretty. Yeah. And I was like, right, I gotta go. He sent me tells for months.
You smell so good when I'm under your bed, Jazz.
He wanted me to send him dryer lint.
Oh.
That's the dryer lint
That's
guy.
creepy.
And he said that
he
said,
wasn't. To be fair, he's an Eagle Scout. They're always asking for dryer lint.
No, he wanted me to send me my dryer lint, and he said, and when you're at the laundromat, gather other people's dryer lint, I'd pay you extra.
Yeah.
How do you meet these fucking people?
Why?
I don't know. They're strong.
What the fuck is wrong with you on a universal level that you get this kind of crazy? I mean, yeah. I mean, as Yunfei says, well, shit, if it pays.
Yeah.
I mean,
you know,
how much
crazy
did you
knows
get out of
crazy.
him?
I had a guy ask me if I could gather any underwear and send it to him and not wash it first. Yeah. I don't know, ladies, if it's just a guy thing because I'm an actual girl and there's just a lot of creepy guys out there, or if it's just I'm somehow a magnet for psycho.
I think
really
this is
don't
what
know which
ERP
one it is.
gets you. This is what this is.
I
where
was
that
an
goes.
ERPer back then, and so, but
That's
not with
what I'm-
him.
Right,
so I
but
was
they
just like,
know.
they somehow knew, yeah. So
Anyway.
I had a couple that were really
Okay,
creepy.
so aside from Jazz's Buffalo Bob encounters,
No joke. Crazy likes crazy. I'm Jazz. I'm just saying.
so what was it you had? What was it you were talking about, Strafe? You said you had
Okay,
something too.
so speaking of Gormal in his past in EQ2, he would always go around and speak in broken common. And people thought he was just a big dumb troll. He could actually speak very well in his own language, and he was just using the stupidity to let people let their guard down so he could get close to him, you know, that kind of thing. Well, this particular time, it was the Festival of the Faceless. For those that didn't play EQ2, this is like God of Fear, of which Gormal was a troll and it was a devoted follower. And he owed the God of Fear several scares, and he devised a plan to feed his god mightily, thus getting him off his back for a few weeks. So how he did this was he did something truly annoying, and I think it was shortly after he peed on his little Arsai friend. But he did something else that really set the guild boss off, which was Vakarina. And when Vakarina got angry, everyone in the guild was terrified. So when Gormal did some grand antic, he walked into the office, Vakarina got on the guild amulet, which touched everybody's brain, yelled gutturally. Everyone instantly got silent. It sounded like the grave in that place. They were creeped out. They were terrified. Gormal then walked into the guild officer's room within a safe distance of not being reached by her, and then said, "Boss, this one thanks you for kindly service to the faceless." Of which Vakarina then screamed louder, terrifying everybody even more, which gave Kaz a cold dessert, and Gormal went tripping out, skipping to his little.
And there was much rejoicing.
Wasn't he naked?
He was naked.
I thought so. I remember that.
Because that was the extra topping of the taco to piss her off.
His nakedness.
I have to say also that I was told my character was frightening.
Mm-hmm.
Only
I
when she was
never
mad.
understood that because I never made her to be scary. But people were very scared of her. And I always thought that was hilarious. I never quite understood that. I know she had a temper, but yeah.
Yeah.
It was
It's-
interesting.
I always
Gormal-
found her where I could see where she was intimidating, but not. I don't know.
Maybe
scary.
they were equating intimidating with scary. I mean, I could see her being intimidating because she was all raw and intense.
Right, and she was a boss and in charge
Yeah.
and had authority and blah blah blah. But yeah, I never really thought of her as like scary.
But people would get silent when she got mad.
yeah,
And Gormal knew this, and so he used
Yeah.
this. And he would use
I
his
suppose
charm.
she
whenever-
did. If she got you in a jail cell, I think she could be very scary.
yeah, but
She
like I
could
said,
torture people and enjoy that, but that
like,
was
but
her
that's
only
more of a
creepy
scary
moments.
moment. Like, and like it's in
I didn't
think-
design her to be scary.
right.
at
And
all.
I think part of the reason it's so difficult to make it truly like a Pennywise kind of character, a monster that's actually feared like a monster should be, is that RP, RP is constant. We're always it's a continual thing. You're logging
It
in
is.
on that character, so can a regularly occurring character actually be scary, or does for a true fright, require only pieces of it now and then?
I don't think you can.
It
I
de-
mean, everyone that I've ever known that has ever tried to make a scary character was hilarious.
Right.
It depends, exactly.
scary.
Because Gormal would use humor. He would use people's disarm thinking he's stupid to get them to go places with him, of which he would flip the script and then try to eat him. Because he was a troll. That was his game. He was out to eat you.
Yeah, and I mean,
And whenever somebody rolled a character that was supposed to be scary, and they said he's a big, evil, scary person, and we have them here in this in this game as well.
Right.
I'm very evil and scary, and you must respect my evil and scary. And no,
but it comes off. That's the thing. They're there all the time, and it comes off cartoonish, doesn't
yes,
it?
Yes.
What's more,
It's
yeah,
like they
and
just
what's-
check that. They're like, check the list of tropes, like glowing red eyes. Check. Can make the air chilly or fiery around them. Check. Growls. Check. Has an intimidating presence. Check.
what is more scary and it's harder
Throws
to pull off.
flowers and presses flowers and wears flannel. Check. Okay, that one is a little weird, but still.
Kilder could be very, and he had a intimidating character, but again, he wasn't supposed to be scary.
Right.
Well, that's
Same-
what I was going to say.
same as
What you have to
Rengoths.
do is, yeah, exactly. It goes to Tilden Wren. What you have to do, and to Gormal a little bit, you have to play off people's
Fears.
lack of knowledge of you and fears.
Yeah.
So if you were always elusive, if you were always appeared to be quiet, you had a reputation of being mean, but you never talked to anybody, the mind of that person would actually make you more terrifying to them than you actually were sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, the closest I think I ever got was the Watcher. Not as it went on, but at the very beginning. I actually got in trouble with one guild because I was running a thing where I made a maze in a house and they were kidnapped and put in there, like teleported to it, and it was kind of a Saw-like thing. But I actually, they were crying out, and somebody actually got upset enough that they asked them to stop talking in guild chat about it because, they didn't like it. Because it was, a younger character, and they were terrified and blah, blah, blah. But, the Watcher is, I think, as close as I tried to make him scary. He had the glowing pinpoint, he did have the red glowing eyes, but they were just little pricks of light in the back of a vast empty, sockets, and a wide Cheshire-like glowing grin of teeth and under a black hood and that kind of
Well,
thing.
he was, because you never knew when he was going to show up. And when he did, it was always terrible.
But he was always the bad guy. I mean, we
right.
agreed to that.
Yeah, he was, and he didn't afterwards, try to intimidate and scare you, and then, hang out and have an ale.
Right.
Afterwards,
Right. And I think that if you're going to make a scary character, I think that you can do that if it's like the Watcher, where it's an agreed upon evil person that's like the bad guy and only shows up for those moments, because that can be it's very tense.
It can be tense.
I felt that it was very tense sometimes when we were doing our events, because we didn't know what was going to happen next.
Right.
And
yeah,
was
because
this
I didn't share it with
fearfulness.
you guys because you
we never
just
knew.
had to trust.
But you had permission to be a little godmoddy and a little out there because you were the bad guy and you were supposed to be scary and powerful. So
Right, and
I
part
think
of
the
it.
problem. Well, go ahead.
the other thing, you have to be able to. Is that your cat?
Yes, he was.
It's either your cat or you stepped on one of your kids. I was sure which. I'm
what
glad
she's
it's
really
the cat.
done is she's kidnapped a Khajiit, and that was its one
was
and only
his
cry
tail.
for help.
A lot of it comes down to the writing of it. You know, because if you say, like what you were saying, Jazz, that they're like, I'm big and scary. Excuse me, I got a really great case of the hiccups. The perfect time to talk. You know, I'm big and scary, and you're supposed, you know, if you're given all this character information out OOC, you know, or it comes off if you're just, or you emote it, which is basically the same thing. You know, if you're emoting that, you know, but it comes down to the ways of actually, you have to give the impression without flat out saying it. Things like,
Yes.
you know, like the air chills, you know, the air, like one of the things I would do with the Watcher, one of the first signs that he was coming was that the candles would slowly start to flicker and the shadows would elongate and other, you know, smiling, like the cries and giggling laughter of children could be heard off in the distance, and then all the shadows would pool into an inky pile, and he'd, you know, kind of rise out through them, and then the lights
Yes,
would go
that was
out,
truly scary stuff.
you know.
But
and-
again, he wasn't a common character. He didn't show up and have an ale with you later.
right, exactly. And then
I just don't think that if you want to make a character that you play on a regular basis, it cannot be a scary character.
yeah,
it just won't.
it just ruins this. It's. I mean,
If you lapse into dialogue of how bad and evil you are,
right. You'd have to play him off like a, gosh, it's really difficult to think like what's the fucking guy, he just died, he always had the swastika on his face. I'm totally blanking now.
oh yeah, and I don't remember his name now
Manson.
either.
Manson.
Manson.
Yeah, Charles
Yeah.
Manson. If you'd have to play somebody on a level of like it, would have to imagine every interview I've ever seen with a guy, he's fucking creepy. Like there's clearly, you know, he's missing a few nuggets from his
There's something
six
wrong
pack.
there.
Yeah. You know, but if you can play them like that, where it's but again, it comes down to subtlety. You can't just like, hey, so okay, so all right, I'm not gonna get ahead of myself because it's just so funny. But I mean, you know, one of the things that you know, like if you're sitting there, you know, having a drink, because I mean, let's be honest, anybody that's been out in public, you've probably been around a killer. It's just statistically, it's impossible that you haven't been around somebody that's taken another life. And I'm not talking about soldiers that do it for their country. That's a different thing. But somebody
People that murdered somebody.
out
yes.
and out murdered somebody in a fit of rage or through planning it or something and totally got away with it. Chances are at this point in your life, I mean, unless you're like 2, which by the way, you have terrible parents for letting you listen to this show. Just, you know, probably go into the foster care system. It'll be better for you than any parents at 2 letting you listen to this. It's awful. Bad parents. You're bad. You have to be able to bring out that sort of psychosis on its own. You can't just, you know, they're, you know, like Marilyn Manson, or not Marilyn Manson. I mean, he's a creepy guy too, but he's just also a brilliant businessman. Charles Manson, you know, that kind of crazy, it doesn't shut off for him. That's just how he lives. And I'm sure you could probably have a perfectly normal and lucid conversation with him, but then, you know, you get on the, I don't know, I don't remember the Jews or whatever it was he's against. I don't know much about Manson. I just assume with the swastika, he didn't like the Jews. Safe bet?
He was just crazy. He didn't like anybody.
But yeah, well, he was real about that spiritual. I know he was about that spiritualistic stuff and the, you know, being out there in the universe, man, and part of all this. You know, we're all part of something, and sometimes the universe speaks to you and it demands a sacrifice. You know, that kind of like, wait, what? What did you just say? Huh? Nothing, man, nothing. You know, that kind of. It's the only way I could think of to really it have to be you'd have to play a almost normal everyday character like you would any adventurer, but every now and then something like the crazy slips out, you know, like we were saying from our like sociopath and psychopath thing, like as well more psychopath, because
That's
the
more
psychopaths
psycho, yeah.
know they're not right, but they know they're not right well enough to hide it, kind of like that show Dexter,
And they don't care.
and they don't care. But you know, like Dexter, you know, he was a true psychopath. They made him kind of the anti-hero by making him kill other bad guys, but he was still slaughtering people and chopping them up and throwing them in the bay. You know, it's not exactly normal, but he didn't feel emotions, things like that, but he faked it. So, you know, maybe if you had it like created almost a Dexter-like character, that might be something scary, especially if you don't tell anybody and it just over time it seeps out. But the problem with that too is, I mean, you've got characters like yours, Jazz Cial. I mean, she's clearly a psychopath, but she doesn't really hide it, you know. So when she's around other, you know, she's a killer and she's around other killers, I mean, how would she react if, you know, maybe the surprise on her, though it would be scary for her and for you out of character, would be realizing like, oh, I've been playing with this character this whole time, and wait a minute, what? They're just as fucked up as my character, but they hit it so well. That kind of thing. Maybe.
Yeah, because Cial is, she's a psychopath. She's sociopathic.
Right, she's an assassin. She's a murderer.
Yeah, she kills people, and she's good at it, and she hides it with some people and not with others.
Right, but the fact is that she doesn't hide it with everybody. So,
but even Cial's got a moral set of rules she sticks to.
She has a set of rules. Well, so do psychopaths, by the way. They do have rules of their own.
Right.
Those rules.
They just don't follow society's rules.
Right. And, you know, Cial is not, I wouldn't consider her a scary person, but I have had people when we have role played and they have found out what she's capable of. They were like, that actually gave me a shiver of fear. Thank you. That was kind of cool. When they realized that this person that they're friends with just killed somebody and then was like cleaned off their knife and went back to eating her sandwich.
Right.
You know.
But yeah, and it's and I guess, you know, but that can be at least get to creepy, but after a while it wears off, you know.
Right. I don't think, like you said, I don't think you can make an actually scary character.
Yeah. Like on a fundamental basis level. And if you can, it'd have to be short term. You couldn't. Yeah. It would be like you'd have to do like Babylon 5 or you know, Game of Thrones. You have a story to tell with this character, and when you get to the end, they're gone.
And you don't have ale on them or get a friend. Part of the reason Cial isn't scary is because she is functional. She doesn't have to be evil.
Well, the bigger problem is what's scary to somebody else is not scary to...
Right. It's too different. Everybody has their own triggers.
Right. Like for you, Jazz, damn near everything scares you. I mean, at least when it comes to movies and TV shows, you know.
I don't watch scary things. No.
Right. It gets to you. And for the rest of us, I mean, you know, we can watch... still haven't seen it yet, Strafe, Halloween, you know, but we can watch that come out going, that was a really good time. That was super creepy. That was great.
And
for me,
Jazz,
I'll watch it and I root for the bad guy. Jazz would watch it and she would be completely terrible.
Yeah.
You don't understand. I would have my eyes and my ears covered.
Yeah, she wouldn't sleep for the next month, you know.
Right. It would be horrible. That's why I don't watch them.
Like our daughter, although she's getting better, but I think I've told the story when we took her to, and it wasn't even during Halloween. We went to Universal Studios in California, and they have the thanks, Sip. They have their, you know, they created the original movie monsters in cinema, but they have a little. It's their attraction. They have those characters, and it's a scare house. It's a full year scare house. But it's, you know, Universal. It's not. It's got some pretty cool props and setups in the rooms. They've got things like Jason. They've got the Wolfman. They've got the Mummy. They've got all the classic guys, and they look great because it's Universal and they do the makeup well. But at the same time, it's not something you'll get at like your local. I know they're all over the country. Your local spook house that really like the kind that can touch you and
Yeah.
will chase you down and go after you. You know, it's not
One
like
year-
that. Like they'll chase you down, but they're not allowed to touch you and stuff like that. And our daughter, she fetalled. I mean, she went full fetal position. And that wasn't even as bad as because it was California and it was a massive attraction place. Don't be stereotypical, but it's true. The Japanese group of girls in front of us, they lost their fucking shit. I'm pretty sure they actually made it all the way back to the island of Japan just by treading water with their feet. I mean, our daughter, Sib had to give her to me because she was yanking on Sib and getting around her so hard. She was actually hurting her.
We came to a standstill.
Yes.
We could not move
Because the Wolfman kept finding her.
She was dragging me down, and so
And
finally,
that's bait for somebody.
Oh, I
scaring
know.
you.
Oh, yeah.
And the sad thing was, there's a line of people. I mean, it's not like like at one where you have to space out. There's a line of people behind us, and the line is just getting longer and longer because she has stopped moving and went to the ground.
Yeah.
And so I'm here trying to drag her. It's not working.
Mm-mm. But and then the Japanese girls in front of us, they were truly terrified too. But they were pressing forward. They were just like sprinting. Just they came running out of there. They were sweating and nasty. It was it's hysterical. I still have a slight Japanese ringing in my ears from the volume and pitch of it. They were very loud, very healthy lungs in the country of Japan, I will say. I assume it comes from all the hentai and tentacles they've got.
Oh gosh.
You can stop now.
What? There's just a lot of screaming.
See,
That's
the
all I'm
last
saying.
haunted house I went to, I can never go back to because I punched someone. So,
Which is,
Universal
he
Studios.
touched me. He touched me, and I just it's not my fault.
Yeah.
Universal Studios of Florida a few years back actually had the Michael Myers experience, and it was like on the Halloween weekend.
Mhm.
No less. I was like, oh my goodness, I wish I was in Florida this time.
Yeah.
But see, I love it, but some
Right.
people cannot handle it.
And we can't handle it. So it's as we were way off topic, but scariness, it's perspective. I know. I know our two Yunfei and Rahanar. Yunfei loves that stuff. Rahanar, he gets, he can't watch it because he gets nightmares. It's just some people they process that kind of stuff differently. I know I've seen some things too that I can't, because of my imagination, I can't unsee them. There was this, it was a Photoshop thing, but it creeped. Things with bugs coming out of the skin is one of like the super creepy things, but it was a photoshopped image of whatever that stupid plant is that has the circles and then there's little round pods in the middle of it. But they photoshopped that onto like a shoulder blade, and it fucking I could not, like, it made my skin crawl for like a week. Just like it's all psychological. And to Yunfei's question in the chat, wouldn't you eventually become desensitized to the scary character? You would. And
Yeah.
that's why I think you have to do, like, the Watcher. He came, I think it was kind of a trilogy of things. He came, he was defeated, he came, he was defeated, he came, he was defeated. And this is actually, when I keep saying that, it sounds more like he was watching porn, not returning. He returned and he was defeated. There we go. Returned. It's much better.
The only
but he
way
was
to make that
temporary.
live long. All right, I'm sorry, Ashton. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying he was temporary, not a permanent fixture, not a constantly played character.
The only
That's why
way
he's creepy.
to keep your constantly played character like mysterious and kind of creepy, you don't socialize with anybody in the guild hall except for a few officers. In my case, I was an officer, so it was easy for me. And Ren didn't say much of anything to anybody. And if he did, he was a freaking raging a-hole about it.
Yeah.
Or he would cut you down, or just not speak to you in your own language. And it helped when Vodka said, "Please don't touch him. He bites." So when you have a supporting
Sure
cast
did.
telling other people to stay away from him because he does bite,
See,
it'll
okay.
maintain an air of kind of fear, but it's not terror.
But it has to be something that other people agree to do.
Right.
So it has to be something that you do with more than one. Because you just can't show up and say, "Hi, I'm scary. Be afraid of me."
No, you just have to play your character, and you just have to get that reputation, and it takes years. And even then, familiarity, like you said, you'll eventually be like, oh, whatever.
Yeah.
He's a jerk.
Kishmas is Rahanar. You know, he's very intimidating.
Yeah.
He's very, you know, he's like a drill instructor.
Wait a minute. Kishmas is Roger.
Right, I said that, didn't I?
You said Rahanar.
Oh, right. They all start with an R. But
Listen.
yeah,
He's
Roger.
close.
Listen, you're messing up the feng shui.
Messing up the shui. But you know, he's super intimidating, and he's like a drill instructor. But even even after a while, if you stay with that instructor long enough, that drill instructoriness wears off. You know, you start to know that they're a human being, that they're that they all that stuff. It's kind of like when you get it's similar to like when you get a brand new job and you don't know anybody and you don't know the ebb and flow of anybody out there. You don't know the attitude of your supervisor and things like that, or the people around you. And as you get to know it, like Yunfe says, things get normalized. You start to understand, oh, okay, well, here's where I fit in this. Here's what they're all like. He's not nearly as intimidating as I thought he was during the interview. He's actually a pretty nice guy. Oh, and he goes to church and serves in a soup kitchen on the weekend, and reads bedtime stories to baby Ewoks. Whatever he's doing. He's not such a big scary guy. He's actually very nice.
And that's the danger, I think, when you play I've noticed a couple people who play scary, quote unquote, characters, but they don't want to be antisocial, so they still go to the bar, they make friends, they date, they do all this
make
stuff,
jokes and sarcasm and laugh,
right? And pretty soon nobody is afraid because they all know that you're not really a scary person, and you did that to yourself with your exposition of your character, which is good, but you can't stay scary unless you do not socialize.
You made yourself a running joke at that point.
Yeah.
And if you maintain your attitude, if you try to be standoffish, it's going to be scary to some people. Like Sib's character, Nikki 2, was still creeped out by Ren. But Xanis was like, oh no, freaking, he's just an idiot from back in the day. I know, I got his number. He's just
But I wasn't really creeped out. I was just intimidated. I mean,
see, there you go.
Intimidated.
And even that doesn't wear off. Yeah, that will wear off over time as well, like Yunfei.
Yeah, it's really hard to play a creepy, scary character.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, even Tilder, after he was an officer for several years, only the new people would come in and they'd be talking to him. And this one guy that kept joking around with him, and he slapped him on the back in a joke, And Tilder just turned around and looked at it and said, the only reason I'm still breathing because Vodka would kill me, right? Don't touch me again. And he loved it. And he was like, oh, this guy's really bad. And I'm like, oh yeah. He's killed people, but Vodka can't prove it. Be careful.
Yeah, and it's and this servants of the temple, because it's a military thing. It's like I said with the drill instructor. They come in, they're real intimidated, and it's real intimidating. It's a brand new guild, but then you especially since it's role play, you start to talk, and I think that's okay. So here's an idea. The biggest problem with it is that you get to know people out of character, and no matter what anybody says, there's always bleed over. So when you know the other person and they're actually, reading bedtime stories to Ewok babies on the weekend, can anyone separate it enough to be like, all right, and now this guy's, who's cracking fart jokes, is, playing this really scary character. Can enough people put that aside?
No, I don't believe that it's possible to be a scary character unless it's a temporary character.
Right. You just can't use your own thing.
Yeah.
And like you guys were saying too, it was the thing I was thinking of as well, is if you don't have, if you haven't established yourself well enough with others to help back you up and help, because all you're doing, that's what all writing is. You're just creating an illusion. You're creating the implications, and you're putting all these little puzzle pieces in motion to create the picture. And if somebody, if all the people around you are taking a few of the pieces because they're not playing along, you have kind of an incomplete picture, and it just it ends up not being what it was meant to be because you don't have the backup you needed. So,
And it's also one of the
true.
things that I've told people before is that when you role play, what you're basically doing is it's writing and you're creating a nest in someone else's head. So you're creating a thing in somebody's head about who your character is. And you're defining how they're going to react with that character. And like a lot of people were afraid of Vodka and afraid of her temper, afraid of what she might do. And then we had characters that were like, oh, I'm not afraid of her. And we didn't last long in the
OOC, they didn't want to be, and
Right.
they had already pre-decided that. And
they had already
regardless of-
pre-decided it. And nothing that happened changed their mind. And people were like, but she does this and this and this. And one day Vodka was really angry. Afraid of you. She's like, I don't want you to be afraid of me, but you better respect me. He says, I don't respect you either. And of course, that was the last day he was in the guild.
Yeah, because
Vodka wasn't going to take that.
Well, in OOC, why is that? Does he have an actual
Yeah.
reason for that? And that's part
no,
of the
he
problem.
didn't.
And a lot of people,
He was just like, I'm not afraid of anybody.
they just don't want. Yeah, their character has no fear because they're stupid. Because everybody should have, even Daredevil, he's the man without fear. Even he's afraid of sometimes. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
He's only not
Fear
afraid
is
because
just
he
respecting the
bounces
situation.
Right.
Sometimes it's perfectly smart to run from a situation, and that doesn't make you a coward. That makes you smart.
Yeah.
Fear is there to tell us how to react in a scary situation. So
Even Tilda and Rengots had their fears, and Ren
yeah.
knew part of Tilda's, but he could never complete the picture and use it again.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a healthy thing. Even the bad guys will have it.
Well, yeah.
This is why
even if
Skeletor always
it's-
ran away from He-Man.
Even if it's something like losing your power and your authority, that's
Yeah.
look at dictators, dictators in the world like Gaddafi and Kim Jong Un and I don't know, just pick any of them. The thing they worry about most isn't it's the people around them and their people
It's,
rising up and them
it's-
losing all of that authority that they have, that power.
Yeah, it's Joseph Stalin always killing folks because he was thinking they were plotting.
right.
There you go, making his long list of send those guys to die.
Yeah, it's that kind of thing, So every villain, even the, Darth Vader, all those guys, they all have, Palpatine. His arrogance was, kept him from, even though he thought he saw the future, he didn't see himself getting thrown down the shaft. He got the
Getting
shaft.
the shaft for sure.
Right. But yeah, in the unfortunate, like I said, I think the only real way is to go psychological, because if you do like we said that if you're just in the bar and you're like, what was that one? Was it Jazz or Sid that was like, I hunt babies? Well, first of all, I mean, do you really hunt them, or do you just pick them up by the ankle? It's not exactly like they're not Ewoks. They're not like, ooh, teeny. Okay, that's Jawas,
Right.
but still.
No, I mean,
But-
that was what Miriam told him when he said that. I hunt babies. She goes, dude, really? That's pathetic. And he said, why? She goes, you don't hunt babies. They can't even crawl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How are you hunting them? Now you can say, I kill babies, and that still just makes you a pussy. But
Right.
I loved Miriam. She was always very blunt. But she said, you don't hunt babies.
Yeah.
She goes, I guarantee you can try to hunt me. That might be fun.
Yeah, and Insomniac in the chat says there's also a good idea to just have the character yourself be creeped out. No need to be creeped out OOC, which is true.
Yes.
But the problem, a lot of times, it almost requires both to be like to be reading that as the actual player and be like, okay, that's actually a little creepy, because it makes it so much easier. A lot of people, at least in my experience, they seem to, because if you're not a little creeped out by it, it's like the I kill kids, or I hunt babies, or I'm a cannibal, I eat people, rah, and I can't talk for others, but for me, a lot of that time, because you're just saying it out loud, it's really eye roll worthy. It's not creepy. It's just eye
Yeah, it
rolly.
is.
In killing fake kids, it's like
It goes to edgelord territory, and you
Right.
start rolling your eyes.
yeah, because in killing made up kids that don't exist, there's no you didn't know them. There's no, even something as like Game of Thrones where they at least let you know the characters for a little while before they kill them off. So there's at least, even though after a while you're like, oh, okay, another one bites the dust, but they're still like, oh, I like them at least, the kind of a thing. Or they really had that coming. They're glad they're dead. They deserve
Well,
it. There's an emotional response for that.
Each of my characters has a set of fears. So I don't have those fears necessarily, although Vaka shared my spider
Spiders.
hatred. But like Miriam loved spiders. She had one in her hair. I had a hard time with that because that would creep me out.
She was such a good daughter. I'm just saying.
She had a spider that lived in her hair, and he would crawl around on her forehead and down her neck and her shoulder and then crawl back up into her hair. And that was creepy to some people because that's a trigger. That's a thing.
Right, it's an actual
But
feeling.
I was creeped out by that. But there are times that my characters are scared when I'm not. But I do have to say, if I was her, would I be scared? And yes or no. It is important. You have to be able to see that a person is being creepy on some level or it doesn't work.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just...
I just don't think it's possible, really.
You could do
You can be creepy, but you can't be scary.
You can do it
full-time
for
character.
events and short stories and in short bursts, but it cannot... I really just do not think somebody can play a continual, constant character. I mean, if it could be possible, maybe we're just... as long as we've been doing it, I've never seen it done, and I don't think... I don't honestly think I would have it in me, because the amount of... just the amount of effort and time, is insane. So,
you have to treat it like you treated the Watcher,
right?
Xanis, because you have to. He can't always be in scene. You can't always be around chuckling it up. He has to show up, do a certain thing, and then disappear, and then leave a lasting impact, and then come back in another time.
Right.
Like a sequel to a horror movie. That's the only way you're gonna do it. I'm trying to follow that formula right now.
Yeah.
With Trash Twin, using the Watcher stuff you did as my reference, and it can work. And I don't show up at any time. I just show up at very key times when nobody's expecting it.
Right, like the Spanish Inquisition.
Yeah, and I showed up on Jazz one night. She wasn't expecting it. And Sajora showed up, and he wasn't expecting it. So then you had complete surprise and unease.
Right.
But you cannot have them on screen all the time, or otherwise you're going to demystify your character.
Yeah. So, all right. So I have a few, I don't know if it's able to be done, but here's, the best ideas I could come up with to pull it off. And like I said, I think we've hit some of these, but there's a few ways, but whatever tropes and whatever way you choose, the one thing that does have to be constant is it has to be believable. You have to build up to it. There has to be maybe small subtle hints of what was there the entire time, but it was just, exactly like that. It was subtle. It wasn't the I kill babies. And not just, and it has to also come off like it's not just pointed out with spotlight, a laser pointer, and an air horn, all to draw attention to it. If that's the way you're bringing it about, it won't work. So scary and creepy, they're often subtle things. They're small. They start out small. Unless you're doing a jump scare, obviously that's loud. It's sudden something. It's something you can get in a movie and a TV show. But it's a cheap scare. You get the same thing when your 5-year-old jumps out from behind the fucking bathroom door and you weren't expecting it. It's a cheap scare. Are you afraid of your 4-year-old? No, but he startled you, so that's just the way you react.
Can you really get a jump scare in game?
Probably not.
Because
the only thing that ever got a jump scare was in EQ2 if you had the crow in there and that little goblin would pop up in front of your screen in the house randomly and go, ah!
Oh, that zombie?
Yeah. That was the only way you could get a jump scare in an MMO.
Jazz hated that thing, and I had it in Gormal's house forever.
Yeah, and he just popped up.
I hate that thing, too.
Yeah. So, like I said, it's subtle. It's menacing. It's insanity that goes maybe unnoticed. Perhaps talking to someone that isn't like if your character's talking, every now and then they're talking, they say something, but it's not related to anything, and then they just move on as if nothing happened, or maybe if you had a good character, which is, I know this is thinking outside the thought process for all of us usually. If you have a good character and that you later find out that they're like having dead animal puppet shows in their basement, you know, or something like that. Like that, you could work. Perhaps that could, you know, it'd be super creepy to find out, you know, like if you're playing a paladin and all the, you know, years later you find out he's like, oh yeah, I like to talk to my squirrel friends. Here they are, and he like sticks his hand up into a squirrel and's like chit chit chitty 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 chit chit chit.
Oh my god!
Right? It'd be like, oh, okay, you're messed up, you know. But you'd have to. I mean, you really have to go out of your way to find something, and it's just such a difficult thing to do, and the amount of energy it would take. To have it not come off. The hardest part, I think, is making it not come off cheesy, like you're just trying to spotlight, like you're just trying, you know, like, I'm bored. You know, how many people in roleplay do that? I'm bored. I'm gonna do something completely out of character, and you know, people will notice me. I mean, it happens all the time. So even if you planned it out, you have to make sure that it doesn't come off like that, and. You know, of course, no matter what you do, there's always going to be somebody, you know, regardless if that was actually the case or not, somebody is probably going to still think it. And they're going to, it's, while some people might go along with it, others are going to roll their eyes, you know, and not just,
it's true.
It's just not going to, it's
because at that point it's an attention grab, right?
Right. Or even if it was a planned thing, it will come off that way because it's like you guys, it's like you're saying that the scary, the creepy factor is different for everyone. What's, you know, what makes me kind of roll my eyes walking through and just is just fun to see all the cool stuff in the Universal Studios horror thing, you know, has my daughter in the fetal position on the floor. You know, it's just a totally different thing. It's just different sensibilities.
Poor mini civvies.
Yeah. And Yunfei was saying another piece of advice for playing a scary character: let things percolate in people's imaginations. The imagination is far scarier than anything actually shown. For example,
it's true.
That is true.
Rosemary's Baby.
Very
You
true.
never actually see the baby, and that makes it scary. So, you know, the brain fills in the blanks, which is true. That's a very, you know, a lot of times in horror movies and things, it's what's not said and not seen that really can get you, you know. That's why I like that Haunting at Hill House that nobody heard me talking about, was because they did
They do
show
a great job of that.
They did show a lot of things, but like a lot of the scares were like, you know, and it's some of the best ones in a lot of movies is the characters, the main characters, the human characters are just traveling through doing their thing, and for no reason, or well, there's usually a reason, but for seemingly no reason at all, there's somebody just standing in the background watching them. Or the statues' heads aren't always facing the same direction when they're looking for somebody. And, you know, and the characters never notice it. And does it have any effect on the thing? On the plot? Not really. But it's super fucking creepy, you know? And it's because
they do a grand job
you
in
don't
that.
know, you don't know what's going on. So that's the best I can come up with. I just, like you guys, I think, our conclusion basically is for an ongoing character to make something creepy or scary, it's nigh impossible.
Yeah.
I mean, I would love for somebody to.
The only way to make it work is
try
if you
it.
have a handful of friends who back you up in that it is scary.
Right. And even then,
Yeah.
you know,
True.
will it be scary for all of them? Probably not.
No.
Again, it's subjective, you know. Fear is a subjective thing. Some people are afraid of spiders, others collect them and milk them and, you know, do all that kind of stuff with medicines around them. Yeah, it's there's no fear there. Yeah, exactly. You know, that's exactly.
I almost went. All right, Fokker, can you milk
Yeah.
the cat?
Thank you for freaking me out.
I got nipples. Can you milk me?
Oh no! Ugh.
Oh, bad.
That's what went through my mind is Meet the Fockers.
Yeah.
I was like, when he said that, I was like, okay.
Yeah,
Sorry.
different kind of milking.
Mhm.
So,
God.
all right.
Bad
well,
people, bad people.
yeah, if you're gonna, you know, for events and things like that, I think you can do it and it can come across, but you really, it's just it depends on the people involved. If they're just not afraid of anything, the characters aren't afraid of anything, and you'll just never get there. You really have to have people that are willing to play along with it. You have to do it kind of in short bursts. Leave some of it to the imagination, and another good thing with horror too. You don't have to explain everything. Like you might need to know that, but just because you have it thought out doesn't mean you need to share it.
That's the problem with the endless sequels of slasher movies. The more you know, the less scary the villain.
Right, because they start to become like sympathetic, like, oh, he was picked on at Crystal Lake, and that's why he's killing all
there you go.
These promiscuous whores.
Exactly.
Yes. But yeah, you just keep it to yourself. Let people fill in the blanks, and if especially because you have to remember it is role play. If they get it wrong, that's okay. Don't correct them out of character. Let them think that.
And don't wax all upset because XYZ isn't scared of you. If they're not scared of you, then maybe you need to take a look at what you're saying or doing.
Or maybe take a look.
Yeah.
Or take a look at them, and if they're one of those people like Jazz, like, I'm not afraid of anything, and I respect nobody, regardless of, what's basic. Well, that's like that guy was with you.
Oh, I thought you were saying me. Okay.
Oh, no. Like that guy was with you.
Yes.
Regardless of anything you did in the established lore of the guild, where you're at least supposed to respect your guildmaster and, the matron, he didn't. Regardless, it didn't matter what you would have done, he wasn't going to do it.
Right.
So, and, if you got if it's one of those people, brush them off. And if the people around you are having fun with the character, like we did with the Watcher, and I think I did before I got kind of burnt out and things got crazy busy with the Menace, it was something different and new, and I look forward to getting back to it, but it only comes up every now and then. Of course, now that it's been probably 2 or 3 months almost since I've had a sighting of that thing, I'm gonna have to really think up of a good, scary, creepy reason why it's been gone.
It's also another point that if you do make a scary character that people agree is scary, and you have someone who doesn't think your character is scary, instead of getting mad at them, take into effect their character and why their character might not be scared of you.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it could vary. It could be their. That's
like
what their
Seal
whole
is
job.
not going to be scared of someone who kills people.
Yeah, or werewolves.
Oh, hi, buddy. How you doing?
Right. Or werewolves or vampires. She's
right.
Yeah,
I mean, she's just not going to be worried about that. But like, she met a vampire the other day. Creeped her out, and she was afraid of him, and she stayed away from him, and she's afraid of people that have silver on their weapons for obvious reasons.
Or she could be afraid of sock puppets for some some stupid thing. It doesn't have to be everything.
Right. But like somebody who, like, one of my characters is a secret necromancer, and so the necromancer who's going, oh, I'm a necromancer, scary, and she's like, and he's like, you don't respect my character. Well, no, it's not that I don't respect your character, is that why would she be scared of you?
You're being an idiot.
So don't jump on it immediately that they're just, being an asshat. Maybe they have a reason why they're, always take that into consideration too.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Like I had a person who wasn't scared of Akka. Killed her.
Right. But there was
why would Tilda be scared of her? You know, because they were two monsters. They were pretty much equals.
Yeah, Xanis wasn't really scared of her. He was just, worried about her more than anything.
Right, because they were equals.
Yeah.
So why would they be scared of each other?
Mm-hmm.
Rengoth was terrified of her until she turned him into something else, and then he was just, what's the word I'm looking for?
Bitter. Vengeful.
But he still clung to that kind of moral side, so he still secretly was kind of terrified of what she might do next.
Yeah.
Right.
But that was more of a let me get her before she gets me mentality.
So it's all good. Just keep those things in mind.
Yeah. It's hard. But you have to work at it, and you have, like Jazz and Ashton said, you have to get people to back you up on it. Otherwise, it's going to fall flat, and no one's going to take it seriously.
Yeah. All right. Well, so I think that about concludes that. I mean, it's just not a thing that can be done.
Yep. We've beat that horse. It's time to move on.
Yeah. Oh, excuse me.
Stick a fork in it, man.
Stick a fork in it. Stick a fork in you. Fork off, man. Go fork yourself. So, all right. Well, with that, that's pretty much the end of the discussion. So we're going to go ahead and play out on Yunfei's story. I don't remember who it was, but she says it, so I don't have to. But I know for the other guys here, they won't be able to hear it because, again, I don't have that kind of technology because I'm a scrub and not really sure how to voice that stuff in there. So, and there was a cat. So go ahead and you guys can mute yourselves while it's playing, or if you need to bug her out, feel free to bug her out. But so with that is our final story for our Halloween Special 2 Electric Boogaloo, Yunfei's story.
We Can Get Them For You Wholesale by Neil Gaiman. Peter Pinter had never heard of Aristippus of the Cyrenaics, a lesser-known follower of Socrates, who maintained that the avoidance of trouble was the highest attainable good. However, he had lived his uneventful life according to this precept. In all respects except one, an inability to pass up a bargain, and which of us is entirely free from that? He was a very moderate man. He did not go to extremes. His speech was proper and reserved. He rarely overate. He drank enough to be sociable and no more. He was far from rich and in no ways poor. He liked people, and people liked him. Bearing all that in mind, would you expect to find him in a low-life pub on the seamier side of London's East End, taking out what is colloquially known as a contract on someone he hardly knew? You would not. You would not even expect to find him in the pub. And until a certain Friday afternoon, you would have been right. But the love of a woman can do strange things to a man, even one so colorless as Peter Pinter. And the discovery that Miss Gwendolyn Thorpe, 23 years of age, of 9 Oak Tree Terrace, Purley, was messing about, as the vulgar would put it, with a smooth young gentleman from the accounting department, after, mark you, she had consented to wear an engagement ring, composed of real ruby chips, 9-carat gold, and something that might well have been a diamond, £37.50. That it had taken Peter almost an entire lunch hour to choose, can do very strange things to a man indeed. After he made this shocking discovery, Peter spent a sleepless Friday night tossing and turning with visions of Gwendolyn and Archie Gibbons, the Don Juan of the Clamages accounting department, dancing and swimming before his eyes, performing acts that even Peter, if he were pressed, would have to admit were most improbable. But the bile of jealousy had risen up within him, and by morning Peter had resolved that his rival should be done away with. Saturday morning was spent wondering how one contacted an assassin, for, to the best of Peter's knowledge, none were employed by Clamages, the department store that employed all 3 of the members of our eternal triangle, and, incidentally, furnished the ring, and he was wary of asking anyone outright for fear of attracting attention to himself. Thus it was that Saturday afternoon found him hunting through the yellow pages. Assassins, he found, was not between asphalt contractors and assessors quantity. Killers was not between kennels and kindergartens. Murderers was not between mowers and museums. Pest control looked promising. However, closer investigation of the pest control advertisements showed them to be most solely concerned with rats, mice, fleas, cockroaches, rabbits, moles, and rats, to quote from one that Peter felt was rather hard on rats, and not really what he had in mind. Even so, being of a careful nature, he dutifully inspected the entries in that category, and at the bottom of the second page, in small print, he found a firm that looked promising. Complete discreet disposal of irksome and unwanted mammals, etc., went the entry. Ketch, Hare, Burke & Ketch, the old firm. It went on to give no address, but only a telephone number. Peter dialed the number, surprising himself by doing so. His heart pounded in his chest, and he tried to look nonchalant. The telephone rang once, twice, 3 times. Peter was just starting to hope that it would not be answered, and he could forget the whole thing, when there was a click, and a brisk young female voice said,
"Ketch, Hare, Burke & Ketch, can I help you?"
Carefully not giving his name, Peter said, how big, what size mammals do you go up to dispose of?
Well, that would depend on what sir requires.
He plucked up all his courage. A person? Her voice remained brisk and unruffled.
Of course, sir. Do you have pen and paper handy? Good. Be at the Dirty Donkey Pub off Little Courtney Street, E3 tonight at 8 o'clock. Carry a rolled-up copy of the Financial Times. That's the pink one, sir. and our operative will approach you there."
Then she put down the phone. Peter was elated. It had been far easier than he had imagined. He went down to the newsagent's and bought a copy of the Financial Times, found Little Courtney Street in his A to Z of London, and spent the rest of the afternoon watching football on the television and imagining the smooth young gentleman from accounting's funeral. It took Peter a while to find the pub. Eventually he spotted the pub sign, which showed a donkey and was indeed remarkably dirty. The Dirty Donkey was a small and more or less filthy pub, poorly lit, in which knots of unshaven people wearing dusty donkey jackets stood around, eyeing each other suspiciously, eating crisps and drinking pints of Guinness, a drink that Peter had never cared for. Peter held his Financial Times under one arm as conspicuously as he could, but no one approached him, so he bought half a shandy and retreated to a corner table. Unable to think of anything else to do while waiting, he tried to read the paper, but lost and confused by a maze of grain futures and a rubber company that was selling something or other short. Quite what the short somethings were he could not tell. He gave it up and stared at the door. He had waited almost 10 minutes when a small, busy man hustled in, looked quickly around him, then came straight over to Peter's table and sat down. He stuck out his hand. "Kemble, Burton Kemble of Ketch Hair Burt Ketch. I hear you have a job for us." He didn't look like a killer. Peter said so. "Oh, Lord bless us, no. I'm not actually part of our workforce, sir. I'm in sales." Peter nodded. That certainly made sense. "Can we, talk freely here?" "Sure, nobody's interested. Now then, how many people would you like disposed of?" "Only one. His name's Archibald Gibbons, and he works in Clamage's accounting department. His address is—" Kemble interrupted. "We can go into all that later, sir, if you don't mind. Let's just quickly go over the financial side. First of all, the contract will cost you £500. Peter nodded. He could afford that, and in fact had expected to have to pay a little more. "Although there's always the special offer," Kemble concluded smoothly. Peter's eyes shone. As I mentioned earlier, he loved a bargain and often bought things he had no imaginable use for in sales or in special offers. Apart from this one failing, one that so many of us share, he was a most moderate young man. "Special offer?" "2 for the price of 1, sir." Peter thought about it. That worked out at only £250 each, which couldn't be bad no matter how you looked at it. There was only one snag. "I'm afraid I don't have anyone else I want killed." Kemble looked disappointed. "Well, that's a pity, sir. For 2, we probably could have even knocked the price down to, well, say £450 for the both of them." "Really?" "Well, it gives our operatives something to do, sir, if you must know." And here he dropped his voice. "There really isn't enough work in this particular line to keep them occupied. Not like in the old days. Isn't there just one other person you'd like to see dead?" Peter pondered. He hated to pass up a bargain, but couldn't for the life of him think of anyone else. He liked people. Still, a bargain was a bargain. "Look," said Peter, "could I think about it and see you here tomorrow night?" The salesman looked pleased. "Of course, sir," he said. "I'm sure you'll be able to think of someone." The answer, the obvious answer, came to Peter as he was drifting off to sleep that night. He sat straight up in bed, fumbled the bedside light on, and wrote a name down on the back of an envelope in case he forgot it. To tell the truth, he didn't think that he could forget it, for it was painfully obvious, but you can never tell with these late-night thoughts. The name that he had written down on the back of the envelope was this: Gwendolyn Thorpe. He turned the light off, rolled over, and was soon asleep, dreaming peaceful and remarkably unmurderous dreams. Kemble was waiting for him when he arrived in the Dirty Donkey on Sunday night. Peter bought a drink and sat down beside him. "I'm taking you up on the special offer," he said by way of greeting. Kemble nodded vigorously. "A very wise decision, if you don't mind me saying so, sir." Peter smiled modestly, in the manner of one who read the Financial Times and made wise business decisions. "That would be £450, I believe?" "Did I say £450, sir? Good gracious me, I do apologize. I beg your pardon. I was thinking of our bulk rate. It would be £475 for 2 people. Disappointment mingled with cupidity on Peter's bland and youthful face. That was an extra £25. However, something that Kemble said had caught his attention. "Bulk rate?" "Of course, but I doubt that sir would be interested in that." No, I am. Tell me about it." "Very well, sir. Bulk rate, £450 would be for a large job, 10 people. Peter wondered if he had heard correctly. 10 people? But that's only £45 each. Yes, sir, it's the large order that makes it profitable. I see, said Peter, and, could you be here at the same time tomorrow night? Well, of course, sir. Upon arriving home, Peter got out a scrap of paper and a pen. He wrote the numbers 1 to 10 down one side, and then filled it in as follows. 1. Archie G. 2. Gwenny. 3. Blank. And so forth. Having filled in the first two, he sat sucking his pen, hunting for wrongs done to him and people the world would be better off without. He smoked a cigarette. He strolled around the room. Aha! There was a physics teacher at a school he had attended who had delighted in making his life a misery. What was the man's name again? And for that matter, was he still alive? Peter wasn't sure, but he wrote the physics teacher, Abbott Street Secondary School, next to number 3. The next came more easily. His department head had refused to raise his salary a couple of months back. And then the raise that had eventually come was immaterial. Mr. Hunterson was number 4. When he was 5, a boy named Simon Ellis had poured paint on his head, while another boy named James somebody or other had held him down, and a girl named Sharon Hartsharp had laughed. They were numbers 5 through 7, respectively. Who else? There was the man on television with the annoying snicker who read the news. He went on the list. And what about the woman in the flat next door with the little yappy dog that shat in the hall? He put her and the dog down on 9. 10 was the hardest. He scratched his head and went into the kitchen for a cup of coffee, then dashed back and wrote, "My great-uncle Mervyn" down in 10th place. The old man was rumored to be quite affluent, and there was a possibility, albeit rather slim, that he could leave Peter some money. With the satisfaction of an evening's work well done, he went off to bed. Monday at Clamage's was routine. Peter was a senior sales assistant in the books department, a job that actually entailed very little. He clutched his list tightly in his hand, deep in his pocket, rejoicing in the feeling of power that it gave him. He spent a most enjoyable lunch hour in the canteen with young Gwendolyn, who did not know that he had seen her and Archie enter the stockroom together, and even smiled at the smooth young man from accounting when he passed him in the corridor. He proudly displayed his list to Kemble that evening. The little salesman's face fell. "I'm afraid this isn't 10 people, Mr. Pinter," he explained. "You've counted the woman in the next-door flat and her dog as one person. That brings it to 11, which would be an extra..." His pocket calculator was rapidly deployed. "An extra 70 pounds. How about if we forget the dog?" Peter shook his head. "The dog's as bad as the woman, or worse." "Then I'm afraid we have a slight problem. Unless..." "What?" "Unless you'd like to take advantage of our wholesale rate. But of course, sir, wouldn't be." There are words that do things to people, words that make people's faces flush with joy, excitement, or passion. Environmental can be one. Occult is another. Wholesale was Peter's. He leaned back in his chair. "Tell me about it," he said with the practiced assurance of an experienced shopper. "Well, sir," said Kemble, allowing himself a little chuckle, "we can, get them for you wholesale. 17 pounds 50 each. For every quarry after the first 50, or a tenner each for every one over 200. I suppose you'd go down to a fiver if I wanted 10,000 people knocked off." "Oh, no, sir," Kemble looked shocked. "If you're talking those sorts of figures, we can do them for a quid each." £1? "That's right, sir. There's not a big profit margin on it, but the high turnover and productivity more than justifies it." Kemble got up. "Same time tomorrow, sir?" Peter nodded. £1,000. 1,000 people. Peter Pinter didn't even know 1,000 people. Even so, there were the Houses of Parliament. He didn't like politicians. They squabbled and argued and carried on so. And for that matter, an idea, shocking in its audacity, bold, daring. Still, that idea was there, and it wouldn't go away. A distant cousin of his had married the younger brother of an earl or a baron or something. On the way home from work that afternoon, he stopped off at a little shop that he had passed 1,000 times without entering. It had a large sign in the window, guaranteeing to trace your lineage for you and even draw up a coat of arms if you happened to have mislaid your own. They were very helpful and phoned him up just after 7 to give him their news. If approximately 14,072,811 people died, he, Peter Pinter, would be King of England. He didn't have 14,072,811 pounds, But he suspected that when you were talking in those figures, Mr. Kemble would have one of his special discounts. Mr. Kemble did. He didn't even raise an eyebrow. Actually, he explained, it works out quite cheaply, you see. We wouldn't have to do them all individually. Small-scale nuclear weapons, some judicious bombing, gassing, plague, dropping radios in swimming pools, and then mopping up the stragglers, say 4,000 pounds. 4,000? That's incredible! The salesman looked pleased with himself. Our operatives will be glad of the work, sir, he grinned. We pride ourselves on servicing our wholesale customers. The wind blew cold as Peter left the pub, setting the old sign swinging. It didn't look much like a dirty donkey, thought Peter, more like a pale horse. Peter was drifting off to sleep that night, mentally rehearsing his coronation speech, when a thought drifted into his head and hung around, and would not go away. Could he possibly be passing up an even larger saving than he already had? Could he be missing out on a bargain? Peter climbed out of bed and walked over to the phone. It was almost 3 a.m., but even so, his Yellow Pages lay open where he had left it the previous Saturday, and he dialed the number. The phone seemed to ring forever. There was a click, and a bored voice said,
Burkhair Catch, can I help you?
I hope I'm not phoning too late, he began.
Of course not, sir.
I was wondering if I could speak to Mr. Kemble.
Can you hold? I'll see if he's available.
Peter waited for a couple of minutes, listening to the ghostly crackles and whispers that always echo down empty phone lines.
Are you there, caller?
Yes, I'm here.
Putting you through.
There was a buzz, and then, Kemble speaking. Oh, Mr. Kemble. Hello. Sorry if I got you out of bed or anything. This is, Peter Pinter. Yes, Mr. Pinter. Well, I'm sorry it's so late, only I was wondering, how much would it cost to kill everybody? Everybody in the world. Everybody? All the people? Yes, how much? I mean, for an order like that, you'd have to have some kind of big discount. How much would it be for everyone? Nothing at all, Mr. Pinter. You mean you wouldn't do it? I mean, we'd do it for nothing, Mr. Pinter. We only have to be asked, you see. We always have to be asked. Peter was puzzled. But when would you start? Start? Right away. Now. We've been ready for a long time, but we had to be asked, Mr. Pinter. Good night. It has been a pleasure doing business with you. The line went dead. Peter felt strange. Everything seemed very distant. He wanted to sit down. What on earth had that man meant? We always have to be asked. It was definitely strange. Nobody does anything for nothing in this world. He had a good mind to phone Kemble back and call the whole thing off. Perhaps he had overreacted. Perhaps there was a perfectly innocent reason why Archie and Gwendolyn had entered the stockroom together. He would talk to her. That's what he'd do. He'd talk to Gwenny first thing tomorrow morning. That was when the noises started. Odd cries from across the street. A cat fight? Foxes, probably. He hoped someone would throw a shoe at them. Then, from the corridor outside his flat, he heard a muffled clumping, as if someone were dragging something very heavy along the floor. It stopped. Someone knocked on his door. Twice. Very softly. Outside his window, the cries were getting louder. Peter sat in his chair, knowing that somehow, somewhere, he had missed something very important. The knocking redoubled. He was thankful that he always locked and chained his door at night. When the thing came through the door, Peter started screaming, but he really didn't scream for very long. They'd been ready for a long time, but they had to be asked.
All right. Well, there you go. That's the final story for our Halloween special. Good job, Uni.
Electric Boogaloo.
Electric Boogaloo. So, all right. Well, with that, appreciate everybody tuning in. Hope you all enjoyed it. There we go. Outro. There we go. All right. So, again, thanks everybody for listening. Appreciate it. Remember, next week we're going to have our big RP MMO multiverse presidential debate. There's no telling how it's going to go, I'll be honest. Most of the people in it are like real politicians. They're fairly butt stupid. It's going to be a real shit show. It should be entertaining, just like actual politics. So go ahead and tune in for that, and after that, you'll be able to vote for a solid week, and we'll come back with the results and see who is going to
Rule
the roost. So, with that, I appreciate it. I, of course, am one of your hosts, Ashen Phoenix, and I want to thank Jazz, Sib, Strafay, and Yunfei, our moderator in the chat. Appreciate everybody that came here and did this. Remember, if you haven't liked or subscribed over at twitch.tv/RPM Radio, or you're not following over at some of the, wherever free podcasts are sold, how are you listening to this? It's kind of weird. It's actually kind of, I don't think it works like that, actually, so, but go ahead and follow us there. If you want to follow us over at rpmradio.com/Discord, join our Discord server. We'll talk to you during the week. If you have questions, feel free to ask. If you have comments, if you just want to joke and shoot the shit, someone will shit with you.
That sounds really, really well.
Yeah, it sounded better in my head. So,
On that note, happy Halloween, folks.
Yep, everybody have a happy Halloween. Stay safe. Scare lots of small, delicate children. And remember, if you're in college, wear an inappropriate, culturally appropriated costume. So tune in next week as we test how long it takes to dismember a halfling in small enough pieces to fit them into ring boxes. And just how many boxes will we need? Next time on RPMMO Radio. Good night, everybody! The thoughts and opinions of those on RPMMO are just that and should definitely be taken as the gospel truth, otherwise you're an idiot. Music, as always, is provided by Husky by the Geek. Visit him at youtube.com/HuskyByTheGeek to hear all his great video game rock covers and original music.